AA for freezing the estate funds after my family said I wasn't real family? I'm Charlotte, 40, the daughter everyone calls when a bill is overdue, a form needs signing, or someone has to explain why the estate account can't be treated like a debit card. I keep a folder of receipts in my kitchen drawer next to rubber bands, batteries, and takeout menus, which pretty much sums up my role in my family. Useful, boring, and only missed when something stops working. The dinner picture stopped me for a second because I recognized the table. The same floral runner. The same glass bowl my mother, Marlene, only used when she wanted people to think everything was warm and normal. Ashley, my older sister, was leaning into the frame with a wine glass in her hand. Dylan, my younger brother, had his arm around Mom like he was the reason she still smiled. Aunt Ruth was there too, along with a few cousins and in-laws. I stared at the caption longer than I should have. Real family. Not family dinner. Not good night. Real family. I waited a few minutes because I didn't trust myself to reply right away. Then I texted Mom privately. Was I supposed to know about this? The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then she wrote, "It was for people who actually want to be part of this family." I read that twice. My first instinct was still to soften it for her. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she felt criticized. Maybe Ashley had been in her ear. I had spent most of my adult life translating my family's cruelty into something easier to swallow. Before I could answer, Ashley dropped a screenshot of my question into the family group chat. Ashley, Charlotte found the post. Everybody prepare your receipts. A cousin sent one awkward laughing emoji. Someone else wrote, "Oh boy." I typed, erased, and typed again. Then Dylan chimed in. Dylan, you're not the heart of this family. You're the lockbox. That was the sentence that made my hand go still. Not because it was the meanest thing anyone in my family had ever said to me. It wasn't. It was because it was finally honest. My grandfather's estate was the reason I had the lockbox reputation in the first place. When he died, he left behind assets with instructions so clear even my family had to pretend to understand them. Certain funds could be used for approved family obligations, property tax, insurance, repairs, care expenses, and limited emergency support with documentation. It wasn't a free pile of money to make everyone comfortable. It had rules. Grandpa knew us. That was the part nobody liked saying out loud. He loved his family, but he also knew Marlene could be guilted into anything if someone cried hard enough. He knew Ashley could make a bad decision sound like a joke. He knew Dylan had never met a safety net he didn't mistake for a hammock. And he knew I was the one who answered emails, saved confirmations, called the insurance company before a lapse notice became a problem, and didn't panic when someone said, "Notarized." So I was named as the person who had to approve certain payments and keep records. There were other signatures involved for bigger decisions, but for day-to-day approved expenses, I was the one who made sure the money went where it was supposed to go. At first, I thought that responsibility would make them trust me. Instead, it gave them a new way to resent me. Mom would call me cold because I asked what a temporary emergency actually meant. Ashley would say I could ruin Thanksgiving by asking if there was a receipt. Dylan called me the family accountant like it was an insult, usually 10 minutes before asking whether I could approve something by Friday. I used to laugh it off. Not because it was funny, but because everyone else was laughing and I had learned that family peace often meant I had to swallow the difficult parts. There was one time, about a year before the dinner, when I approved a Dylan-related expense I shouldn't have approved as quickly as I did. Mom called me crying. Not fake crying either. Real broken, shaky breathing that made me sit down on the edge of the bed with my phone pressed to my ear. "Just this once," she said. "He's embarrassed. Don't make me ask him for paperwork." "It still needs documentation," I told her. "He'll get it to you. Please, Charlotte. He's your brother." That sentence had opened doors in my family for 34 years. So I approved the payment as temporary emergency support, made a note that repayment documentation was pending, and saved Mom's voicemail anyway. I told myself I was being compassionate. Looking back, I was teaching them that if they pushed me hard enough, I'd make the rules bend and then carry the guilt for everyone. A few months later, an overdue insurance notice landed in my email, even though I had approved money for that bill weeks earlier. I remember standing at the counter with cold coffee in my hand, reading the subject line 3 times because it made no sense. I called Mom. Why is this unpaid? She sighed like I had interrupted her in the middle of surgery. It's a misunderstanding. Did the payment not go through? Charlotte, you always assume the worst. I'm asking because the account shows the money left. That was when her voice changed. Not panic exactly. More like irritation wearing panic's coat. I'll handle it, she said. What does that mean? It means you don't need to turn every conversation into an audit. Ashley said something similar later that week when I asked her about a reimbursement labeled family care. Can we not make every grocery run sound like a federal investigation? She said. It wasn't a grocery run, I said. The amount matches the hotel charge you asked about last month. She went quiet for one beat too long. Then she laughed. God, Charlotte. This is why people don't invite you to things. I should have paid more attention to that line. After the real family post, I didn't reply in the group chat. I didn't tell Dylan he was spoiled. I didn't tell Ashley she had been sending me reimbursement requests with smiley faces while mocking me to relatives. I didn't tell my mother that calling me paperwork didn't hurt nearly as much as realizing she meant it. I took screenshots. Then I opened the kitchen drawer with the receipts. That sounds dramatic, but it was the most ordinary thing in the world. The drawer stuck a little because a stack of takeout menus had slipped behind the tray. I pulled out the folder, cleared a spot on the counter, opened my laptop, and logged into the account I was legally authorized to manage. The first strange transfer was labeled maintenance. Same amount as Dylan's rent. That could have been a coincidence. I wanted it to be. I clicked into the date and checked the notes. There was no invoice, no repair company, no property address, no approval email. Just a transfer that had been routed through Mom's request and pushed forward as if it were routine. The second was labeled family care. That one matched the reimbursement Ashley had asked for after a weekend trip she claimed was connected to helping Mom reset after stress. There was no care provider, no medical invoice, no approved caregiver expense. Just Ashley's Venmo screenshot with a vague caption and a message to me that said, "Can we please not make Mom feel guilty about needing support?" The third was temporary emergency. Dylan again. Then household reimbursement. Ashley again. Then another maintenance. Dylan. One bat payment could be confusion. 6 of them was a system. I went back through emails, bank statements, Zelle confirmations, Venmo screenshots, and the notes I kept whenever someone called instead of putting something in writing. The amounts weren't huge enough to scream theft from across the room. They were the kind of amounts a tired person might approve because the family was already mad and the bill was already due and nobody wanted another fight. That tired person had been me. At 11:18 p.m. my phone buzzed. Mom. You embarrassed me by questioning dinner. Let it go. Then Ashley. Nobody said you weren't family. We said you make family feel like a business meeting. Then Dylan. Grandpa didn't leave that money so you could play gatekeeper. I stared at Dylan's message and felt something in me settle. I wrote one email. Until every request has a receipt and written approval, discretionary distributions are paused. I will not approve undocumented transfers, personal reimbursements, or any new authorization without legal review. I sent it to Mom, Ashley, Dylan, the estate attorney's office, and the bank contact listed in the estate records. Then I called the bank's estate account line and asked for a temporary hold on discretionary withdrawals that didn't match approved categories. Required bills with proper documentation could still be paid. Property tax, insurance, verified repairs, real care expenses, those stayed protected. I wasn't burning the house down. I was locking the side door everyone had been sneaking through. The woman on the phone asked if I wanted confirmation by email. Yes, I said. Please include the documentation requirement. The next morning I woke up to missed calls, voicemails, texts, and tags in the family group chat. Mom left the first voicemail at 6:42 a.m. Her voice was low and wounded. Charlotte, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you are hurting this family. Call me before this becomes something we can't fix. Dylan texted at 6:47. What did you do to my rent? I answered that one. I stopped calling it property maintenance. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Dylan. You're sick. Ashley texted at 7:03, suddenly polite. Can you please call me before Mom spirals? This is really not the way to handle hurt feelings. I wrote back. This is not about hurt feelings. It is about undocumented withdrawals. She replied, you always do this. I almost asked, do what? But I knew the answer. I always made the invisible part visible. I always asked what the money was for. I always ruined the story by bringing in the receipt. By 8:30, Mom had moved the fight to the extended family group chat. Marlene. I am heartbroken to say Charlotte has decided to punish the family financially because she felt excluded from one dinner. Ashley. This is exactly what I meant about control. Dylan. She wants everyone begging. A cousin wrote, can someone please explain what's going on? Mom answered before I could. Marlene. Your grandfather wanted this money to help family. Charlotte has forgotten that family is more important than paperwork. That one stung because it sounded so noble if you didn't know what she had been asking me to hide. Aunt Ruth messaged me privately 10 minutes later. Charlotte, I need to understand what I'm looking at. Your mother says you froze everything. I liked Ruth. She wasn't perfect. She had believed Mom's version plenty of times because Mom's crying was always more persuasive than my explanations. But Ruth had a practical streak. She was the kind of woman who would comfort you and still ask where the check went. I sent her one screenshot, the maintenance payment that matched Dylan's rent, with account numbers blacked out. Ruth replied, is there more? A lot, I wrote. That afternoon, while putting together a cleaner timeline, I found the part that made the dinner go from cruel to calculated. It was in an email chain Ashley had accidentally forwarded to me 2 weeks earlier, buried under a subject line about family options. I hadn't opened the whole thread at the time because the top message was just Ashley asking about a reimbursement. Now I expanded it. There they were. Mom, Ashley, Dylan, and 2 relatives discussing reducing friction around estate approvals. Dylan wrote, once she signs the new authorization, we won't need her attitude. Ashley replied, people need to see how much calmer everything is without Charlotte making it about rules. Dinner will help. Mom wrote, I don't want a fight. I just want peace. Dylan answered, peace means access. I sat back in my chair and felt my face go hot. The real family dinner wasn't just a dinner I had been excluded from. It was a strategy meeting. They had gathered relatives, fed them, laughed about me, and built a little audience for the next phase. Pressure Charlotte into signing away oversight so Dylan could get easier access and Mom could stop pretending she didn't know where the money was going. For a few minutes I did nothing. I just listened to the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the occasional buzz of my phone against the counter. Then I built the folder. I called it what I was signing while they called me the lockbox. I included the estate instructions showing approved spending categories. I included the bank email confirming that discretionary distributions required documentation. I included the overdue insurance notice. I included the transfers labeled maintenance, family care, temporary emergency, and household reimbursement, with account numbers blacked out and dates highlighted. I included Ashley's private text asking me to help Mom feel supported, next to her group chat joke about me loving control more than family. I included Dylan's "What did you do to my rent?" text next to the transfer labeled maintenance. I included Mom's voicemail transcript, the one where she said, "Please just approve it this once. Don't make me ask Dylan for paperwork. You know how embarrassed he gets." I included the email chain about the new authorization. I didn't post it online. I didn't send it to strangers. I didn't call people at work or tag anyone in public. I sent nothing at all that day except one reply in the family chat. Charlotte, I will respond once with documentation to the people who have been involved in this. Mom called me 6 times after that. I let it ring. On Sunday, Mom invited me to a family gathering. She used the sweet voice, the one she saved for people she wanted watching. Just come over, she said. We need to sit down like a family. Who will be there? Don't start. Who will be there, Mom? She exhaled sharply. Ashley, Dylan, Ruth, a few others. People are worried. People are misinformed. They're worried because you shut off your own family. No, I said. I paused. Undocumented access. Silence. Then she said, you have always cared more about rules than people. I looked at the printed folder on my table. I'll be there. When I walked in on Sunday, there were casserole dishes on the counter, paper plates stacked beside plastic forks, and that thick, tense silence families create when everyone has already discussed you before you arrive. Ashley was standing near the sink with her arms crossed. Dylan was on the couch, leaning back like this was a performance he had already won. Mom's eyes were red, but not messy. She had prepared the tears carefully. Ruth sat at the end of the table with a cup of coffee and watched me walk in. "Charlotte," she said, not warmly but not coldly either. I nodded. "Ruth." Mom didn't hug me. She looked at the folder under my arm. "Is that necessary?" "You tell me." Ashley gave a small laugh. "Oh my God." She brought props. I set the folder on the table and didn't open it. Mom clasped her hands together. "I asked everyone here because this has gone too far. You were hurt over a dinner. I understand that. But shutting off money your grandfather left for this family is not acceptable." Dylan muttered. "She wanted us begging." I looked at him. "No, Dylan. I wanted receipts." He rolled his eyes. Ashley jumped in. "Can we just admit this got ridiculous because Charlotte wanted control? Nobody said you weren't family." I took out my phone, opened the group chat and scrolled to Dylan's message. I turned the screen toward her. "You're not the heart of this family. You're the lockbox." Ashley looked away. He was angry. He was accurate. Mom's voice sharpened. "Do not talk about your brother like that." "I'm using his words." "You embarrassed your mother in front of everyone," she said. That was when I opened the folder. "No. You dragged my name through this family. I brought the receipts." I sent the redacted PDF to the family group chat while everyone's phones sat on the table or in their hands. One by one they started buzzing. Dylan sat up. "Are you serious right now?" "Very." Ashley grabbed her phone first. Her face changed before she finished the first page. I kept my voice even. "You told everyone I froze family money because my feelings were hurt over one dinner. Here is the part everyone wasn't shown." Mom reached for the folder. Her fingers trembled as she flipped past the title page. I pointed to the first section. The estate instructions. Approved expenses include property tax, insurance, documented repairs, care expenses, and limited emergency support with paperwork. Not rent disguised as maintenance. Not personal trips disguised as care. Not reimbursements with no invoice because asking questions makes people uncomfortable. Dylan stood. "You wanted me to look bad. You did that when you texted me asking what I did to your rent. You knew I was struggling." "I knew because Mom cried and asked me not to make you prove it." Mom's face flushed. "Dylan needed help. I thought you would understand that." "I did understand it," I said. "That's why I approved one emergency transfer and asked for documentation. Then it happened again. And again. And somehow I became the cruel one for noticing." Ashley held up a hand like she was trying to stop traffic. "I didn't know Mom was using that account for Dylan." I turned to her section. "This is your reimbursement request for the weekend trip. This is the transfer labeled family care. This is your text saying, 'Can we please not make Mom feel guilty about needing support?' And this is your message in the group chat saying I treat family like tenants." Her mouth opened then closed. I said, "You don't get to laugh at the person you invoice." That landed harder than I expected. A cousin looked down at the table. Someone's phone buzzed again but nobody touched it. Mom started crying then. Not the pretty tears. Real ones. She pushed the folder away like the paper itself had attacked her. "I was only trying to keep this family together." "No," I said. "You were trying to keep Dylan comfortable and keep me quiet." Dylan snapped. "Grandpa didn't leave that money so you could punish me. Grandpa left instructions because he knew exactly what would happen if nobody had to say no." "Wow," Ashley said under her breath. "That's low." I looked at her. Lower than planning a dinner to convince relatives I'm the problem so I'd sign away oversight? Ruth's head lifted. "What?" she said. I flipped to the email chain and slid the folder toward her. Page 9. Ruth read silently. Her expression went from confused to still. That stillness scared Mom more than anger would have. Ruth looked at Marlene. "You were planning to remove Charlotte?" Mom wiped her face. We were discussing options. Dylan said. Because she makes everything impossible. Ruth kept looking at Mom. If this money had rules, why was Dylan's rent labeled as maintenance? Nobody answered. Ruth turned one page, then another. And why did Ashley's weekend get reimbursed as family care? Ashley said. It wasn't like that. Ruth's voice changed. Marlene, is any of this fake? That was the question that broke the room. Not why did you do it? Not how could you? Just, is any of this fake? Mom looked at the folder. Then at Dylan. Then at me. She didn't say yes. Dylan tried to fill the silence. She keeps receipts because she's bitter. She's been waiting to do this. I felt my jaw tighten, but my voice stayed calm. No. I've been waiting for you to stop making it necessary. He laughed once, sharp and ugly. You think you're better than us. No, I said. I think rules apply to you too. Mom whispered. This all happened because you couldn't let one dinner go. I looked at her for a long moment. I wanted to tell her that the dinner hurt. I wanted to say that seeing my mother smile under real family made something small and childlike in me fold in on itself. But she would have used that. She would have turned it back into feelings, and feelings were where she always won. So I stayed with facts. This happened because you used estate money outside the approved terms, lied to relatives, mocked me for the work you depended on, and planned to pressure me into signing a new authorization so I would be useful without having authority. Ruth closed the folder gently. I think we need a formal accounting before anyone signs anything else. Mom stared at her. Ruth. No, Ruth said. I defended you because I believed you. That was my mistake. But this is paperwork, Marlene. Paperwork doesn't cry, and it doesn't flatter anyone. It just sits there. Ashley looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Dylan looked furious, but underneath the anger I could see panic. Real panic. Not about family. About rent. About bills. About the fact that the account he resented had been carrying him quietly enough that he could pretend it wasn't. My phone buzzed with an email from the estate attorney's office. I had asked them to confirm the documentation rules and the temporary pause. Their message was short and dry, which made it perfect. I read one line aloud. Discretionary distributions should remain paused pending proper documentation and review of prior transfers. Dylan said, So that's it? You're cutting me off. I am not approving personal support outside the legal terms. What am I supposed to do? Handle your bills directly. He looked at Mom as if she might fix that sentence for him. Mom had no fix. The fallout after that was not clean or cinematic. Nobody stood up and gave me a heartfelt apology. No one clapped. Half the relatives avoided eye contact. One cousin left early with a paper plate covered in foil, which felt very on brand for our family. But the shift was obvious. People stopped comforting Mom automatically. Ruth asked me to send her the PDF again, so she could read it without everyone talking over it. One uncle who had texted me earlier that I needed to respect my mother pulled me aside and said, I didn't know about the transfers. It was not an apology, but it was close enough to show he understood he had stepped on something he hadn't bothered to see. Ashley tried to catch me by the door. Charlotte, she said softer now. I really didn't mean for it to get this big. I looked at her. You helped make it public. I was joking. You always say that when the joke sends the bill to someone else. She flinched. For once she didn't have a comeback. Mom sent me a message that night. I'm sorry this became so hurtful. I read it while standing at my kitchen counter, the same folder open in front of me, the same drawer half closed because the takeout menus were still in the way. I wrote back, that is not accountability. 10 minutes later she replied, what do you want me to say? I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because there it was again. The family skill. Making me manage the repair after they made the mess. I typed slowly. Say you told people I was withholding money out of spite when you knew I was asking for documentation. Say you helped disguise Dylan's support as other expenses. Say you let Ashley and Dylan call me controlling while you were privately asking me to approve things quietly. Say you plan to pressure me to sign a new authorization without telling me the real reason. She didn't respond that night. The next morning, Ashley sent a meme to the group chat about families needing a CFO, and a therapist. No one reacted. Not even Dylan. I texted her privately. Do not use jokes to step over this. She replied, fine. That was probably the shortest conversation we had ever had. Dylan sent one more angry text. You win. I answered, no. The account rules win. After that, he went quiet. The practical consequences came fast. The bank kept discretionary transfers paused unless the request matched approved categories and included receipts. The estate attorney asked for a cleaner accounting of the questionable payments. Ruth asked to be copied on future documentation so no one could pretend I was inventing requirements. Required bills got paid properly. The overdue insurance issue was corrected, with documentation this time. Dylan had to handle his rent without hiding behind maintenance. Ashley's pending reimbursement was denied. Mom could no longer call me heartless without explaining why her own voicemails asked me to keep Dylan's name out of things. A few relatives apologized privately. Most did not. Some people would rather step around a truth forever than admit they helped carry a lie. But the biggest change was mine. For years, I had confused being needed with being valued. I thought if I answered every call, fixed every overdue notice, softened every bad choice, and saved everyone embarrassment, eventually they would look at me and see family. They didn't. They saw a signature. So I set my terms in writing. Estate money would only cover approved expenses with receipts and written approval. No personal support for Dylan, Ashley, or Mom outside the legal terms. No new authorization without attorney review. No emergency cleanup calls that somehow never turned into paperwork. And if they involved relatives by lying about me again, I would send the full timeline to every person they pulled into the story. Mom finally sent a better message to the group chat 3 days later. I told people Charlotte was withholding money because she was upset. That was not true. There were expenses I asked her to approve without proper documentation, including support for Dylan. I should not have let anyone call her controlling for following rules I already knew existed. It was not perfect. It didn't mention the dinner plan. It didn't mention the lockbox comment. But it was the first time my mother had corrected herself in front of other people without making me drag every syllable out of her. Ruth responded, "Thank you for saying that." Ashley did not respond. Dylan left the chat for 2 days, then came back without saying anything, which was his version of a white flag. I turned off the group chat notifications after that. The silence felt strange at first. I was so used to being summoned by crisis that calm almost felt like neglect. The next morning I rinsed the coffee pot, put the receipt folder back in the kitchen drawer, and shoved the takeout menus behind it so the drawer would finally close. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel healed. I felt tired, clear, and done paying for a place at a table where I was only invited as a signature. They wanted me out of the family until they realized I was the only reason the family money still existed. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.